For more analysis, we're happy to be joined from London by Dr. Marcos Papadopoulos, the expert in international relations and specialist in the Middle Eastern affairs. Welcome to the program. Before we start talking about the Strait of Hormuz, is Donald Trump, after he is desperate or no more holding hope about the big countries intervening in that dispute about Iran, and he now asked for these countries to play a type of role in the Strait of Hormuz? What do you think about that?
Donald Trump's request is a most sinister one, and it demonstrates how intense the situation is that he finds himself in, indeed, that he placed himself in. Because by requesting the navies of other countries in the world to send their vessels into the Strait of Hormuz is all about Trump hoping that those vessels will be attacked by the Iranians, and as a consequence, men on board those vessels will die. Then Trump and the propaganda machine in Washington will then say to those countries and to the rest of the world that Iran has gone to war with you. Iran has killed your sailors. Therefore, join militarily with America and Israel in the war against Iran. As I said, that is a most sinister, a most diabolical request from Trump. But, as I said, it goes to show how serious the predicament is that Trump is in. And as it currently stands, I find it very difficult to believe that other countries in the world will send their naval vessels into the Strait of Hormuz because they do not want their sailors to die for Israel, because this war is Israel's war, and Trump is using American blood to fight Israel's war, and he now wants the blood of other nations in the war to fight this war on behalf of Israel.
So what did Donald Trump bet or rely on or thought of when he made this request to these countries to participate in maintaining the security in the Strait of Hormuz?
Donald Trump and his administration are acutely aware that the world is now facing a very major energy crisis. Prices for oil are already going up dramatically. Indeed, they will soon skyrocket. Worse still, countries will start to run low because a great amount of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. That is why Trump has now gone cap in hand to the Russians and is allowing countries across the world to purchase Russian oil without incurring the wrath of American sanctions. So Trump is now hoping that other countries will also send their navies into the Strait of Hormuz. But quite frankly, one has to question the mental health of Donald Trump, because, as I said, what country would send their sailors on a suicide mission into the Strait of Hormuz? The Iranians clearly have prepared for some 40 years for war with America, and war with America centers partly on the Strait of Hormuz. So the Iranians are ready to destroy American battleships or the battleships of another Western nation which enter the Strait of Hormuz on the side of America and Israel. Other countries in the world, such as the Japanese, they understand that it would be a suicide mission. So that is why countries in all four corners of the world are turning to Russia. Russia has made an immense amount of money ever since America and Israel went to war with the Iranian people, the Russian revenue is simply colossal. So who is winning this war? Well, militarily, Iran is winning, and economically, Russia is winning.
Is it possible that Donald Trump will allow this to go on, knowing that Russia is achieving economic gains, once he asked the countries to boycott Russia and places embargo, and another time he allows it? So all of these American practices, statements that are delivered by Donald Trump, isn't it possible that this could affect the situation of the United States of America and its relation with the countries of the world after this crisis comes to an end?
There is utter chaos in Washington, D.C. relating to the war with Iran. And that is no surprise, because the Americans went to war with the Iranian people with no clear objective. And as a result, the Americans have no clear strategy for prosecuting this war. On the one hand, the Americans have placed sanctions on Russia in the hope that it will detrimentally affect Russia's ability to sell oil. But on the other hand, now that the world is facing a massive energy crisis, the Americans have gone, as I said, cap in hand to the Kremlin. So what is the end game for Trump? It is very difficult to say. He is continuing with this war. The American military losses are continuing on a daily basis. And one knows that American casualties in terms of dead and wounded is far greater than what the White House and the Pentagon is saying. So that leaves us with the question, why is Trump continuing with an unwinnable war? Regardless of what he says on social media or what he says in front of the camera, Iran is not anywhere near close to being defeated. Iran has the upper hand in this war, and yet he is continuing. Trump is continuing with no clear objective. The only conclusion which can be drawn is that Trump is utterly beholden to the Israelis, and he is fighting this war for Israel because he's utterly beholden to the Israelis, and that he is beholden to the Israelis must be seen in the context of the Epstein files.
Marcus, can we speak or say that Netanyahu is the one that is going to get out of this confrontation winning and emerges victorious, especially that he's talking about Israel's security and changing the map of the region? He's one of the most winning parties of what's going on, maybe. What do you think?
Like with Trump, no importance should be attached to the words of Benjamin Netanyahu. The reality is that Israel has been devastated by this war. Devastated in terms of the huge destruction which Iranian missiles have wrought on Israel. Devastated in terms of the economic losses that Israel has incurred as a result of the war. It is for that reason that the Israeli government have implemented media censorship in Iran, whereby Israeli media outlets, and indeed foreign media outlets operating in Iran, are not allowed to report on the enormous amount of damage that has been sustained all across Israel, especially in terms of military losses. And also, Israel is now fighting on two fronts. Israel has invaded Lebanon. Israel is bogged down in a hand-to-hand fight with Hezbollah. Israel at the same time is fighting a war with Iran. So Israel is not benefiting militarily or in terms of its strategic importance from this war. Israel, like America, seriously miscalculated Iranian military capabilities and seriously miscalculated Iranian resolve. The Israelis hoped or believed or both that Iran would collapse within a few days of American and Israeli airstrikes on the country. Also, the Israelis, like the Americans, overestimated the amount of Iranians inside of Iran who are opposed to the Iranian government. Also, even Iranians inside of Iran who have differences of opinion with Iranian government policies are now united with the Iranian government in defense of Iran, because Iran has been attacked. And whatever someone's opinions are about their government, if their country is attacked, if their people are attacked, then they will rally behind the government to fight foreign aggression. So the Israelis, like the Americans, are in a very deep quagmire.
In addition to this, and speaking of the Strait of Hormuz, there has been a statement by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, where he talked or said that the Strait of Hormuz is working normally, but the American tankers aren't allowed to pass. Do you think that such a statement means that there could be any interests of any other countries to interfere in terms of protecting the Strait of Hormuz? And how do you read this statement?
Well, Iran is in control of the Strait of Hormuz, and in order to support its control of the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranian military have undoubtedly turned the Strait of Hormuz into a potential killing zone for the American Navy, or indeed the Navy of any other Western country which aims to enter the Strait of Hormuz in support of America and Israel. So that is the brutal reality facing the Trump administration. After all, Iran has been attacked. Therefore, Iran is fighting back not just militarily, but also economically. The Iranian military can fight a war indefinitely, partly because it has infinite reserves of oil and gas to do so. The Americans and the Israelis cannot do that. So that is why Trump has made a desperate and sinister appeal to the countries, to the navies of other countries in the world to enter the Strait of Hormuz. And he knows very well that the Strait of Hormuz is a killing zone. Anyone who is interested in this should just take a map and find the Strait of Hormuz, and they will see for themselves how close it is to Iranian territory, how the Iranians can destroy any vessel that enters the Strait of Hormuz with their missiles, with their drones, and indeed with their mines. And I have no doubt that the Iranians have other means in the Strait of Hormuz to destroy any vessel which enters without their permission in support of America and Israel. So again, the Iranians can fight on economically indefinitely, but the Americans and the Israelis cannot.
Iran is still threatening and saying that it still has lots of surprises to the United States of America. So what could be these surprises, Dr. Marcos? What do you think?
For some 40 years, ever since the end of the Iraq-Iran war, the Iranian government prepared for this day, namely war with America. That is why the Iranian government has built such a vast and powerful military force, a vast and powerful missile force, and a vast and powerful paramilitary force. I strongly suspect that the most advanced Iranian missiles have not, as of yet, been used against the Americans and the Israelis. And that is a very, very worrying reality for the Americans and the Israelis, because already the Iranians have inflicted massive damage on Israel and massive damage on American military bases. And yet the Iranians have not, as I suspect, used their most advanced weapons. So the question is, what else have the Iranians in store militarily for the Americans and the Israelis if Washington and Tel Aviv continue to prosecute this war of aggression? It is simply inconceivable that the Iranian military and the Iranian people are not going to continue with this defense of their country. The Iranians are hugely patriotic. So if you combine that with the fact that the Iranian economy can support a very powerful and large military force, which have developed all sorts of military means for fighting a war with America, it really, really reinforces how serious the situation is for Trump and his administration.
Is it possible to say that now the United States of America and Israel have become in a situation that's hard and that there is no going back of this situation? And how do you see the Iranian statements about its intent to assassinate Benjamin Netanyahu?
For Iran, the situation is a lot more simple. For Iran, they have to simply keep on sustaining the damage that Iran is incurring as a result of American and Israeli strikes. And simultaneously, the Iranians have to keep on inflicting damage on the Americans and the Israelis. The situation for the Americans and the Israelis is a lot more complicated. As I said, the Americans and the Israelis are running out of munitions. The Israeli and American economies cannot sustain a protracted war with Iran. So the question is, who will bow out first? Will it be America and Israel, or will it be Iran? I am not underestimating the American military. After all, the American military is a superpower, but even superpowers have limitations, and the American public does not support this war. MAGA is spittily divided over Trump's war. So in regard to how long this war can continue, well, Iran can fight on indefinitely, but the Americans and the Israelis cannot. And in regard to Iran targeting the Israeli leadership, well, I am aware of the rumors or stories circulating on social media. Well, I have no way of knowing whether there is any veracity to those stories or to those rumors. However, it is very clear that the Israeli leadership, both the political and military leadership, are afraid of Iranian missile attacks. Therefore, they have gone into deep bunkers, and it is possible that some Israeli leaders are no longer in Israel. They could be in any number of countries directing this war. It just goes to show how potent, how advanced Iran's missiles are, and all the more so it is worrying for the Israelis that Iran has not deployed its most advanced missiles. Again, the Israeli public will testify to this. Day and night, Israeli cities are being attacked by Iranian missiles, and Israeli air defense systems are simply overwhelmed and simply ineffective against Iran's missiles. And American air defense systems cannot protect Israel. America's air defense systems cannot protect the Arab Gulf countries. So again, Iran can continue fighting this war. But why is Trump continuing it? Why? When America is not threatened by Iran, when American military and economic losses are surging, why is he fighting this war for Israel? Again, this must be seen in the context of how beholden Trump and other members of his administration are to the Israelis.